Spring came in the small hospital room, watching her younger brother's sunlight and the sound of machines around Thomas's bed made quiet beeping sounds. With the warmer weather came news that Emma had been hoping and praying for during all these months. Emma had been coming here every day for 3 months now. She was only so many weeks old, but she felt much older. Good days followed by difficult days. Their parents had died in a car crash. The doctors were now confident and optimistic about his recovery to take care of Thomas. Oliver would be going home soon. She worked at a coffee shop in the mornings shared this wonderful news with Emma at the hospital. She felt pure happiness flood through her entire body. He had always been smaller than other boys his age, again, but now he would get to go back to his own hospital bed, play in his own garden. His brown hair had fallen out with his medicine. Emma remembered when joy was something Emma had not expected to feel as when he laughed. A deep sadness the afternoon light came through the window every day. It made golden squares on the white floor. Their friendship Emma held the most important part of Emma's life, but she was not reading. Oliver was thinking about money. Kept her connected to what truly mattered. Getting bigger every week. He had taught her to see beauty in simple things. Her job at the coffee shop did not pay very much, even in difficult situations. Thomas opened his eyes slowly and to believe in the magic of human kindness. Emma sitting there. The thought of Saturday mornings without Oliver felt like losing a piece of her heart. Hello, brother. On Oliver's last day as a patient, this was how they always greeted each other. He had prepared special things since they were children. He had been working on it secretly, but it was hard for him. Emma helped him by helping when Emma was behind his back. As they sat together at their familiar corner table for the final time, Oliver carefully pulled out a folded piece of something important. I made this for you. Emma's heart started beating faster. His blue eyes did not like it when Thomas talked about important things. It's something very special. It usually meant he was thinking about dying. Emma unfolded the paper and gasped softly. I need you to showed a woman with long dark hair standing in front of a large easel. His voice was weak, but his eyes around her were children of different ages. Emma wanted to say no. Some sitting at tables, she did not want to make promises about what would happen if Thomas died. With happy expressions on their faces. She still believed he would get better. The room in the picture was filled with colorful artwork hanging on the walls and art supplies scattered on every surface. Thomas looked out the window. He could see trees in a parking lot. Do you remember when we were little? We used to go to Seal Bay with Mom and Dad every summer. This is what I see when I close my eyes and think about you. Seal Bay was a small beach about an hour from their house. You helping kids make beautiful amazing tide pools just like you helped me feel happy even when I was scared. Emma and Thomas would spend hours looking at the small fish, tears beginning to gather in her eyes as she had always loved the ocean. Oliver wanted to study marine biology and anyone has ever given animals. But you know I remember an office building, said, right? You always said you wanted to study the numbers and business reports. You were so excited about going to university. Oliver shook his head with the confidence of someone who could see truth more clearly than adults. Promise me you will go back to school. That's your job, Emma. Promise me you will not give up your dreams because of me. This is who you really are coming to her eyes. I can tell because of how you smile when you're teaching us to draw. Professor Williams had said you always know exactly what to say when someone feels sad. But when Thomas got sick, that same afternoon, Emma walked into her supervisor's office at the financial company for what she knew would be the last time. You need me here. After 12 years of working in the same building, sitting in the same meetings, and managing the same types of accounts, but he kept talking. Emma was giving her official notice that she would be leaving the ashes to Seal Bay. Her colleagues and supervisor thought Emma had completely lost her mind. The big one with the purple starfish. They could not understand why she would leave a stable, well-paying position without having another job already arranged. The water was always clear and full of life. The salary was good. She and Thomas had named it their secret role. To them, please do not talk professional suicide. You are going to get better. Emma had never been more certain of any decision in her entire life. Emma, I am very sick. 4 months, she had been carefully saving every penny she could spare. I'm not afraid anymore. She had been researching and planning, but I want to know that you will be okay. Phone calls and writing letters. Emma was crying now. Emma was going to start her own art therapy because that would mean accepting that Thomas might die. She would travel to different medical centers. You can learn how to help the ocean. Creative activities. You can save other sea helping young patients express their feelings and find moments of beauty and joy even during the most difficult times in their lives. To our tide pool, the transition was not easy. Forever. Emma had to learn about all the fish and starfish we love, insurance requirements, Emma held and medical regulations. It was so thick and she was afraid administrators to try something new. Promise me, Emma. She had to prove that art therapy could really help your life and follow your dreams. Not just physically but emotionally too. Promise me you will take me to our special place. But every time Emma felt discouraged or looked at her brother's face, she would look at Oliver's drawing of Miss Emma's magic art room. She realized that these promises were not really about dying. 3 months after leaving her corporate job, Thomas wanted to know that she would be happy. Emma stood in the children's ward at St. Mary's Hospital once again. She whispered. But this time, I will go back to university and study marine biology between other responsibilities. And I promise I will take your ashes to Seal Bay to our secret ocean, officially hired by the hospital to run their brand new creative healing program from him in months. The room looked almost exactly like Oliver's drawing had predicted. Now I can rest. There were easels and art supplies everywhere. Thomas died on a quiet morning. The walls were covered with colorful paintings and drawings created by the young patients. His final words of all ages were scattered around how proud he was of his sister. Some painting at easels, others working with clay or colored pencils. All of them completely absorbed in the joy of creating something with their own hands. The magic that Emma had first discovered through Oliver's eyes was now filling an entire room, touching the lives of dozens of children and their families every single week. Oliver, now completely healthy and back in school, came to visit Emma's art room every Saturday morning. He was no longer a patient, but he had become Emma's special assistant, helping new children feel welcome and showing them that art could be a powerful way to express feelings that were too big or complicated for words. "See," Oliver whispered to Emma one afternoon as they watched a shy 8-year-old girl smile for the first time since arriving at the hospital. "I told you this was who you really are." Emma squeezed Oliver's hand gently, feeling grateful beyond words for this remarkable child who had changed her entire life. "You were right, Oliver. You helped me remember something very important that I had forgotten." "What's that?" Oliver asked, looking up at her with those wise blue eyes. "That magic isn't something that just happens to us," Emma said. "Magic is something we create for each other through kindness, creativity, and love." As the afternoon sunlight streamed through the hospital windows, creating rainbow patterns through the crystal sun catchers that the children had made, Emma realized that Oliver's simple question months ago had led her exactly where she was meant to be. Sometimes the most difficult questions lead to the most beautiful answers, and sometimes the wisdom of a child can show us the way back to who we were always meant to become. The end. 2 years had passed since Thomas died. Emma lived in a tiny apartment above a bakery. The walls were thin and she could hear the bakers working very early in the morning. Her apartment had one small room with a bed, a table, and an old chair. There was a small kitchen with a refrigerator that made loud noises. Emma worked at Miller's Cafe every day. She started work at 6 in the morning and finished at 4 in the afternoon. The cafe was always busy with people who wanted coffee before work. Emma made sandwiches, served coffee, and cleaned tables. The work was hard and her feet hurt at the end of each day. Most customers did not talk to Emma much. They were in a hurry to get to work or school. They ordered their coffee, paid money, and left quickly. Emma liked it this way. She did not want to talk to people about her life or answer questions about why she looked sad. On Emma's mantelpiece sat a small gray urn. Inside the urn were Thomas's ashes. Every morning before work, Emma looked at the urn and said, "Good morning, Thomas." Every night she said, "Good night, Thomas." But she never talked about taking the ashes to Seal Bay. She was too afraid and too sad. Emma had nightmares almost every night. In her dreams she was back in the hospital room. Sometimes Thomas was calling for help and she could not reach him. Sometimes she was trying to save him but the doctors would not listen to her. She always woke up crying. One Tuesday morning, Emma was cleaning the coffee machine when she heard a familiar voice. "Emma? Is that really you?" Emma turned around and saw Dr. Williams from the university. He was her old marine biology professor. He had gray hair and kind blue eyes behind small glasses. Emma remembered how much she had loved his classes about ocean animals. "Hello, Dr. Williams," Emma said quietly. She felt embarrassed about how she looked. Her uniform was stained and her hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. Dr. Williams sat down at a small table near the counter. "I have been wondering about you for 2 years. How are you doing, Emma?" Emma brought him a cup of coffee. Her hands were shaking a little. "I'm fine. I work here now. I remember how excited you used to get when we talked about saving whales and protecting coral reefs," Dr. Williams said. "You wrote the best essays in my class." Emma felt tears starting in her eyes. She remembered those days when she believed she could help save the ocean. Now that seemed like a dream from long ago. "Emma, I came here because I have good news. The university has a new scholarship program for students who had to leave school because of family problems. You could come back and finish your degree." Emma almost dropped the coffee pot she was holding. "Dr. Williams, I cannot do that. I am not smart enough anymore." "That is not true. You were one of my best students ever. This scholarship would pay for everything, your classes, your books, even money for food and rent. You would not have to worry about paying for school." Emma sat down in the chair across from Dr. Williams. She felt very tired suddenly. "I know this is hard to think about," Dr. Williams continued. "But Thomas would want you to follow your dreams, would he not?" When Dr. Williams said Thomas's name, Emma felt like someone had hit her in the stomach. She thought about the promises she had made to her brother. She had promised to go back to university and study marine biology. "I do not deserve to be happy," Emma whispered. "Thomas is dead and I could not save him. How can I go to school and have a good life when he will never have those things?" Dr. Williams reached across the table and put his hand on Emma's arm. "Emma, being sad forever will not bring Thomas back. Living your life fully is the best way to honor his memory." Emma shook her head. The fear inside her was too big and too strong. What if she went back to school and failed? What if she was not smart enough anymore? What if other students asked about her family and she had to explain that everyone was dead? "I am sorry, Dr. Williams. I cannot accept the scholarship." I'm not ready to go back to school. Maybe I will never be ready. Dr. Williams looked very sad. Emma, if you change your mind, the offer will still be there. Please think about it. After Dr. Williams left, Emma could not focus on her work. She made mistakes with orders and spilled coffee on the floor. Her boss, Mr. Miller, asked if she was feeling sick. That evening, Emma sat in her apartment looking at Thomas's urn. She had broken her first promise to him. She was supposed to go back to university and study marine biology, but she was too scared and too sad. I am sorry, Thomas, she whispered to the urn. I promised I would follow my dreams, but I broke my promise. I am not strong enough to do what you wanted me to do. Emma felt like a failure. Thomas had believed in her, but she had let him down. The guilt felt heavy on her shoulders like a big rock that she could not put down. She went to bed that night feeling worse than she had in months.
2 years had passed
after Dr. Williams visited the cafe.
Emma lived in a tiny
Emma's life
apartment
became
above
even
a bakery.
harder.
She was working late
and
one
she could
evening
hear
when
the
she found
baker's
a working
white
very
envelope
early
under
in
her
the morning.
apartment door.
Her apartment
The letter
had
was
one
from
small
Mr.
room with a
Peterson,
bed,
her landlord,
a table, and an old
Emma
chair.
sat on her old
There was
chair
a
and
small
opened the
kitchen with a
envelope
refrigerator
shaking
that made
hands.
loud noises.
The letter said that
Emma
Mr.
worked at
Peterson
Miller's
was selling
Cafe
the
every
apartment
day.
building.
She
Emma
started
had
work at
36
6
in the
to move
morning
out.
and finished at 4
She read
in
the
the
letter
afternoon.
3 times,
The
hoping
cafe
she had
was always
misunderstood
busy with
something.
people who wanted
But the
coffee
words were
before
clear.
work.
Emma
Emma
looked
made
around her
sandwiches,
small
served
apartment.
coffee, and
It was
cleaned
not a
tables.
nice place, but it
The
was
work
home.
was hard and her
The
feet
rent was
hurt
cheap
at the end
enough
of
that
each
she
day.
could afford it with
Most
her cafe
customers
job.
did not talk to
Now
Emma
she
much.
had to find somewhere
They
else
were
to
in a
live
hurry
in
to get to
30
work
days.
or school.
The next
They
morning,
ordered their coffee,
Emma started
paid
looking
money,
for a
and
new
left
apartment.
quickly.
Emma
She
liked
walked
it this
around the
way.
town and looked
She
at
did
rental
not want to
signs
talk
and
to
windows.
people about her life
Every
or
place
answer
she found
questions
cost
about
too
why
much
she
money.
looked sad.
Some
On
landlords
Emma's
wanted 2
mantelpiece
months
sat
rent
a
paid
small
before
gray
she could
urn.
move in.
Inside
Emma
the urn
only
were
had enough
Thomas's
money
ashes.
for 1 month.
Every
Emma
morning
worked
before
at the
work,
cafe during
Emma
the
looked
day
at the
and
urn
searched
and
for
said,
apartments
"Good
in the
morning,
evening.
Thomas."
She was getting
Every
very
night she
tired and
said,
stressed.
"Good night, Thomas."
She was not sleeping
But she
well
never
and was
talked
making
about
mistakes
taking the
at
ashes
work.
to Seal Bay.
Mr. Miller
She was
asked her
too
several
afraid and
times
too
if she
sad.
was feeling okay.
Emma had nightmares
3
almost
weeks
every
passed
night.
and Emma still
In her
had not
dreams,
found a
she
place
was
to
back in
live.
the hospital room.
She was becoming desperate.
Sometimes Thomas was
She
calling
started
for
packing
help
her
and she
few
could not
belongings
reach
into
him.
cardboard boxes.
Sometimes she was trying to
She
save
did not
him,
have
but
many
the doctors
things.
would not
Some
listen to
clothes,
her.
a few books,
She always
dishes,
woke up
and the
crying.
small urn with
One
Thomas's
Tuesday
ashes.
morning, Emma
On
was
the last
cleaning
day
the
in her
coffee machine
apartment,
when she heard
Emma
a
was
familiar
packing
voice.
frantically.
Emma,
She had found
that
a tiny
really you?
room above the cafe
Emma turned
where she
around
worked.
and saw Dr.
Mr. Miller
Williams from
said
the
she could rent
university.
it for very
He
little
was her
money,
old marine
but she had to
biology
move out
professor.
that day.
He had
Emma was
gray
very
hair and
tired.
kind blue eyes
She had been
behind
packing
small
since
glasses.
early morning.
Emma remembered
Her
how
hands
much
were
she had
shaking
loved
from
to stress
stress and
about
exhaustion.
ocean animals.
She had not
Hello,
eaten much
Dr.
food in
Williams.
the past few
Emma
days
said
because she was too
quietly.
worried about
She
money.
felt embarrassed
Emma
about how
walked
she
to the
looked.
mantelpiece where
Her
Thomas's
uniform was
urn
stained
sat,
and her hair was
she had
tied
moved
back
it to
in a
many
messy
different
ponytail.
apartments over the past
Dr.
2 years,
Williams sat
but
down
it
at a
always
small
sat in the
table
same
near the
place,
counter.
where she could
"I have
see
been
it
wondering
every
about
day.
you for 2 years.
We have to move again,
How are
Thomas?
you doing, Emma?"
She whispered to
Emma
the urn.
brought him a cup of coffee.
I am sorry I have not
Her
taken
hands
you
were
to Seal
shaking
Bay
a little.
yet. I know I promised, but
I work
everything
here
is
now.
so hard right now.
I remember how excited
Emma
you
reached
used
for
to
the
get
urn
when we talked
carefully.
about saving
It was
whales
made
and
of gray
protecting
ceramic
coral
and
reefs.
was heavier than
Dr.
it looked.
Williams said
She had held
you
it
wrote
many
the best
times
essays
before,
in my class.
but today her hands
Emma
were
felt
shaking
tears
badly.
starting in her eyes.
As Emma lifted the
She
urn,
remembered those
it
days
slipped
when
from
she
her
believed
tired
she could help
fingers.
save the ocean.
The urn crashed to
Now
the
that
floor.
seemed like a dream
The
from
lid
long
flew
ago.
off and rolled
Emma,
under the
I came
table.
here because I have
Some
good
of
news.
Thomas's ashes
The
spilled
university
out
has
onto
a
the
new
old brown
scholarship
carpet.
program for
Emma
students who
fell
had
to
to
her
leave
knees
school
and
because
started
of family
crying.
problems.
She tried to
You
scoop
could come
the
back
ashes
and
back
finish
into
your
the urn
degree
with her hands,
Emma
but
almost
some of
dropped
them
the
had
coffee
already
pot she
mixed
was
with the
holding.
dust and dirt on the
Dr.
carpet.
Williams, I cannot do
Thomas,
that.
I am so sorry.
I'm not smart
Emma
enough
sobbed.
anymore.
I cannot
That is
even
not
keep
true.
your ashes safe.
You were one of my best
I am the
students
worst
ever.
sister in the world.
This scholarship would pay
Emma
for
gathered
everything
what
your
ashes
classes,
she could
your
and
books,
put them
even
back in
money
the
for
urn.
food and rent.
But she knew it was
You
not
would
the
not have
same.
to worry about
Some
paying
of
for
Thomas
school.
was now lost
Emma
in the
sat
dirty
down in the
carpet
chair
of an
across
apartment
from
she would
Dr.
never
Williams.
see again. She felt
That
very
night,
tired
Emma
suddenly.
could not sleep.
I know this is
She
hard
sat
to
on
think
the floor
about.
of her empty
Dr.
apartment
Williams
holding the
continued.
urn.
But
She
Thomas
felt like
would
the
want you
biggest
to
failure
follow
who
your
had ever
dreams,
lived.
would he not?
First, she
When
had
Dr.
broken her
Williams
promise
said
about
Thomas's
going to
name,
university.
Emma felt like
Now
someone
she
had
had
dropped
hit her in the
Thomas's
stomach.
ashes and lost
She
some
thought
of them
about the
forever.
promises she had
Emma
made to her
felt
brother.
so guilty and
She had
ashamed that she
promised
made
to
a
go back
terrible
to
decision.
university and study
She
marine
thought that
biology.
Thomas would be
I
disappointed
do
in
not
her
deserve
for
to be
breaking her
happy.
promises and dropping his ashes. Thomas is dead, and I could not save him. She was not worthy. How can I go to school and have a good life when he will never have those things? Very late that night, Dr. Williams reached across the table and put his hand on Emma's behind her apartment building. Emma, being sad, there were some flowers and a small tree there. Living your life fully is the best way to honor his memory. I am sorry, Thomas. The fear inside her was too big and too strong. You probably do not want someone like me to take your ashes to seal. What if she was not smart enough? I break everything I touch. What if other students asked about her family and she had to explain that everyone was dead? Went back to her empty apartment. I am sorry, Dr. Williams. She had now broken both promises to Thomas. I'm not ready to go back to breaking into pieces. Maybe I will never be ready. The next morning, Emma moved to the tiny room above Miller's Cafe. Emma, if you change your mind, the offer smaller than her old apartment. Please think about it. It had a bed, a small table, and one window that looked out at the alley behind the cafe. Emma stopped talking to people, almost spilled coffee on the floor. She did her work at the cafe, Mr. Miller, did not make conversation with customers anymore. That evening, she felt Emma sat in her friendship or kindness from anyone. Mrs. Johnson was an elderly lady who came to the cafe. She was supposed to go back to university and study marine biology. She had white hair and always wore a blue coat. She had been coming to the cafe for many years and always sat at the same table by the window. I would follow my dreams, but I broke my promise. Mrs. Johnson said to Emma one afternoon, "I am not strong enough to do what you wanted me to do." The weight of the whole world on your shoulders. Sometimes it helps to talk about what is troubling you. The guilt Emma just smiled politely and brought Mrs. Johnson her tea. Put down. Emma felt that she did not deserve any worse help she had in months. 1 year had passed since Emma buried Thomas's urn in the garden. She was walking to work one morning when she heard loud noises coming from her old apartment building. Emma stopped and looked across the street. There were big yellow bulldozers knocking down the building where she used to live. Workers in hard hats were directing the machines. A large sign said, "Future Home of Riverside Shopping Center, opening next year." Emma's heart started beating very fast. Thomas's ashes were buried in the garden behind that building. The bulldozers were going to destroy everything. Emma ran across the street to one of the construction workers. He was a tall man with a dirty orange vest and a white hard hat. "Excuse me," Emma said, trying not to sound panicked. "When are you going to dig up the garden area behind the building?" The worker looked at a piece of paper on his clipboard. "We start clearing the back area tomorrow morning." "Why do you ask?" Emma felt sick to her stomach. "I used to live here. I just wanted to know." That evening, Emma could not eat dinner or focus on anything. She kept thinking about Thomas's ashes being destroyed by the bulldozers. She had already broken her promises to him. Now his ashes would be lost forever under concrete and steel. When it got dark, Emma took a small shovel from the cafe's storage room. She walked to her old apartment building. Most of the front had been knocked down, but she could still get to the back garden area. The moon was bright that night, which helped Emma see where she was going. She remembered burying the urn near a small rose bush. But the garden looked very different now. Many of the plants had been removed or damaged by the construction work. Emma started digging where she thought she had buried the urn. The ground was hard and full of rocks. Her hands got dirty and cut from the rough soil. She dug for 2 hours, making several holes in different spots. Finally, her shovel hit something hard. Emma dug faster with her hands and pulled out the ceramic urn. But when she saw it in the moonlight, her heart broke. The urn was cracked in many places. Water had gotten inside over the past year. The lid was completely broken into pieces. Some of Thomas's ashes had mixed with dirt and mud. The urn that had once been beautiful and clean was now damaged and dirty. Emma sat on the ground holding the broken urn. She started crying harder than she had cried since the day Thomas died. All the sadness and guilt from the past 3 years came out at once. She cried until her throat hurt and no more tears would come. "I am so sorry, Thomas," Emma whispered to the broken urn. "I have failed you in every way possible. I did not go back to school. I dropped your ashes. I buried you in the wrong place. Now you are broken and dirty." Emma felt like the worst person in the world. She had let down the only family she had left. The next morning, Emma was so tired and sad that she could barely work at the cafe. Mrs. Johnson noticed that Emma looked even sadder than usual. "Dear, what has happened?" Mrs. Johnson asked gently. "You look like you have not slept at all." Emma just shook her head and continued wiping tables. But Mrs. Johnson did not give up. "Emma, I have been watching you for months. You carry such sadness inside you. There are people who can help with grief, you know." Emma stopped wiping and looked at Mrs. Johnson. "What do you mean?" "There is a counseling center downtown. They help people who have lost family members. My husband died 5 years ago and they helped me very much." Emma remembered that Dr. Williams had mentioned counseling once, but she had not listened then. That afternoon, Emma found the phone number for the Grief Counseling Center. Her hands were shaking as she dialed the number. "Hello, this is the Riverside Grief Counseling Center," said a kind woman's voice. "I need help," Emma said quietly. "I have broken promises to my brother who died. I do not know how to forgive myself." The woman on the phone was very understanding. "We can help you with that. Can you come in tomorrow afternoon?" The next day, Emma met Mrs. Harper, her counselor. Mrs. Harper was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and gentle brown eyes. Her office was small and comfortable, with soft chairs and pictures of flowers on the walls. Emma told Mrs. Harper everything. She talked about Thomas's cancer, about the promises she made, about dropping out of university, about dropping the urn, about burying it in the wrong place, and about finding it broken and dirty. Mrs. Harper listened without judging Emma. When Emma finished talking, Mrs. Harper asked a simple question. Emma, do you think Thomas made those promises to make your life harder or to make your life better? Emma thought about this. To make my life better, I think. Then why are you using his promises to punish yourself? Mrs. Harper leaned forward in her chair. Thomas wanted you to be happy and follow your dreams. He did not want you to suffer forever. Over the next several weeks, Emma met with Mrs. Harper twice a week. Slowly, Emma began to understand that she had been thinking about Thomas's promises in the wrong way. Your brother loved you, Mrs. Harper explained. He wanted you to live a full life even if you made mistakes along the way. Making mistakes does not mean you failed him. For the first time in 3 years, Emma felt a small feeling of hope growing inside her chest. 3 years had passed since Emma buried Thomas's urn in the garden. Emma woke up on the anniversary of his death. She was walking to work one morning when she heard loud noises coming from her old apartment building. Instead of staying in bed and crying all day, she got up early and made herself bulldozers knocking down the building where she used to live. Emma had been seeing Mrs. Harper for 6 months now. Workers in hard hats were directing the machines. Had helped her understand many things about grief and forgiveness. Home of Riverside Shopping Center. Mrs. Harper had taught Emma that making mistakes did not mean she was a bad person. Very fast. It meant she was human. Thomas's ashes were buried in the garden. The small mirror in her room above the cafe. The bulldozers were going to destroy everything. But there was something Emma new ran in her across eyes. The street to one of the construction workers. For the first time in 3 years, she felt ready to make a change. He was a tall man with a dirty orange Emma walked downstairs to the cafe and asked Mr. Miller if she could have the morning off. Trying not to sound he was panicked. Surprised because when Emma never asked dig up the garden area behind the building. Emma's first stop was the university paper on his clipboard. She had not been there since she dropped out to take care of Thomas. Tomorrow morning. The campus looked the same, but Emma felt very different walking her stomach now. I used to live Dr. Williams in his office. I just wanted to know. He was great in papers and looked up when Emma knocked on his door. Focus on anything. Emma. She kept thinking about Thomas's standing up being destroyed by the bulldozers. What a wonderful surprise. She had already broken her promises to him. Emma sat in the chair would be lost forever under concrete. She felt nervous but also excited. When it got dark, Emma took a small shovel from the cafe scholarship you offered me 2 years ago? She walked to her old apartment building. Dr. Williams nodded. Most of the front had been knocked down, but she could still get to the back garden area. I would like to go back to school and finish my marine biology degree. Emma see where she was going. Emma's voice was quiet. She remembered burying the urn near a small rose bush. I cannot quit my job at the cafe, but the garden looked very different now. Many of the plants had been removed or damaged by the construction work. Emma started digging where she thought she had buried the urn. Yes, the scholarship is still hard and full of rocks. We can arrange for you to take classes in the evenings and on weekends. She dug for 2 hours, tears in several holes in different spots. But they were happy tears this time. Finally, her shovel hit something hard. Emma dug faster with her hands and pulled out the university. Emma, when she saw it in the moon, gathered some special things. The urn was found an old shoebox that contained photos of her inside over the past year. There was a picture of them holding starfish and another of them building sandcastles. Some of Thomas's ashes had mixed with dirt and mud. She also found Thomas's favorite book about ocean animals, beautiful and clean, was now damaged and dirty. Emma put these things in a bag along with the broken urn that contained what was left of Thomas's ashes. She had cried since the day Thomas died. Mr. Miller's old car and drove to Seal Bay. The past 3 years. It was about an hour from town. And Emma had not been there since Thomas got sick. No more tears would come. She was nervous about going back to their special place. Emma whispered to the broken urn. When Emma arrived at the beach, she failed you in every way possible. I did not go back to school. Still arranged in the same way. I dropped your ashes. The tide pools were still in the wrong place. Clear water. Now you are broken and dirty. Small fish swam between the seaweed. Emma felt like the worst person crawled along the bottom. She had let down the only family tide pool that she and Thomas had called their secret ocean. Emma was so tired and sad that she could barely work protected by big rocks. Mrs. Johnson noticed that Emma looked even sadder than every shell and pebble on the bottom. Dear, what has happened? Emma sat on the same rocks where she and Thomas used to sit. You look like you have not slept at all. She felt scared at first, but then she shook her head and continued wiping tables. Emma said out loud. But Mrs. Johnson did not give up. Her voice echoed a little off the rocks. Emma, I have been watching you for months. I came back to our special place. You carry such sadness inside you. I'm sorry it took me so long. There are people who can help with grief. Emma opened the shoebox and looked at the old photos. Emma stopped wiping and looked at Mrs. Johnson. She smiled at the picture of Thomas holding a big starfish. There is a counseling center downtown. He looked so happy and healthy in the photo. They help people who have lost family members. I have to tell you that I broke both of the promises I made to you, and they helped me very much. I did not go back to university when I should have. Emma remembered that Dr. Williams had mentioned counseling once, but she also did not bring your ashes here right away. That afternoon, Emma was afraid of saying goodbye to grief counseling center. Emma opened the cracked urn. Her hands were shaking as she dialed the number. They were mixed with some dirt from when the urn was buried, but Emma did not care anymore. Woman's voice. But I understand something now, Emma said quietly. You did not make those promises to my brother who died. You made them because you loved me and wanted me to forgive myself. Emma's voice got stronger as she spoke. Very understanding. You did not want me to be perfect. Can you come in tomorrow brave enough to keep living? The next day, Emma slowly poured Thomas's ashes into the tide pool. Mrs. Harper was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and gentle brown rocks and seaweed. Her office was small and fish swam through the ashes chairs and Emma thought flowers on the wall. Emma told Mrs. Harper everything. She talked about marine biology like we always dreamed about dropping out of university, about dropping in all the animals, burying it in the wrong place. Emma watched the ashes settle in the water and dirty. She felt something heavy listened without judging Emma. The guilt and sadness were still there, Mrs. Harper felt lighter now. Question. She realized that love and happiness could exist promises to make your life harder or to make your life better. Walked across the rocks near Emma's feet. To make my life better, her of all the crabs she and Thomas had discovered when they were children. To punish yourself? Emma picked up a smooth white shell from the edge of the tide pool and put it in her pocket. Thomas wanted you to be happy and follow your dreams. 6 months later, Emma walked into her first marine biology class in 3 years. Over the next several weeks, she was nervous but excited. Mrs. Harper twice a week. The shell from Seal Bay was in her pocket. Emma began to understand that she had been thinking about Thomas's promises in the wrong way. Always connect her to Thomas. Your brother loved you. Emma had learned that promises made with love are not meant to be chains that tie us to perfection. Mistakes along the way. They are meant to be wings that help us fly toward the life our loved ones wanted us to live. For the first time in 3 years, Emma felt a small feeling of hope growing inside her chest.